in. No one wants to sit in the front row. It's like school. Yes. Hello. Come in. Hi. Shall I just wait for you? Yeah? Okay, good morning, everyone. My name's Becky Hancock. I'm English, living in Spain, and I'm a teacher and teacher trainer, and I'm very happy to be here today in Budapest. So today I'm talking about CLIL and its role in 21st century education. So I've told you a little about me. What I'd like to know is, who are you? So do we have any teachers here? Any of you teachers? All of you. Any educational organisers, curriculum managers, anything like that? No? One. Great. Okay, sort of. Okay, it's nice to know who I'm talking to. Any education managers, policy makers? Again? Okay, great. Welcome. So, let's begin. CLIL. This acronym that has taken over the educational world. We all know what it stands for. It's content and language integrated learning. But what exactly does that mean? It's probably one of the most overused and misinterpreted acronyms around at the moment. And this is something that we will look at later to discuss what exactly does CLIL mean. Okay? And 21st century education. No other century has had an educational approach named after it. No one ever talks about 17th century education or 19th century education. Why 21st century education? What's so special about the 21st century? What's so different? Well, what we're going to do is we're going to step back in time and have a look at education through a historical perspective. So, before schools even existed, how did children learn? They learnt through play, through exploration, through adventure, through trying things, through experimentation. They were driven by basic instincts. One of the most powerful of which is curiosity. Curiosity is so basic and so instinctual that even nowadays, every child that is born has this innate sense of curiosity. And what happens is, please come in. It's an essential element of learning. And children spend their lives, when they first enter this world, from the moment they can walk and they talk, they're trying to taste and touch and feel and smell and see things and ask, why? Which is the perfect ingredient for learning. That's what we want from children, to want to try it, to go out there and explore and to try the things that we give them. So why do our students not want to do that a lot of the time? Anybody do this? Is this you? This was me. Lots of laughter, so I assume it was you as well, or maybe your children. And it hurt. It really hurt. And people tell us, don't do that. Don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. It will hurt. And we still do it. Why? Because we want to know for ourselves. We want to learn for ourselves. Did anyone do this? I did this. This is not me. There is no photographical evidence of me doing this. And it wasn't with dog food, it was with cat food. Cat biscuits? No? Has anyone tried them? Come on. Oh, yes, fantastic, thank you. You know, why? Someone's like, oh, don't touch that, it's a cat biscuit. And you're like, but, you know, and you want to try it. This is curiosity. It cannot be suppressed in children. However much you tell them, don't do it, you can't do it. You can't suppress it. We as children want to find out. So another very basic, powerful instinct is creativity. We are all born creative. At the end of the day, working out how to walk, how to crawl even, involves creativity. How to be able to stand up. What can I use to help me stand up? How can I get from A to B? We don't realise it, but this is all creativity. It's a natural instinct. The great Ken Robinson, you all know his speech, you know, that schools are killing creativity, and it's true. And we need to do something about it. I mean, his speech is old, but it's so relevant, and things still haven't changed in most educational systems. Before schools, children climbed trees and built rafts and worked out how things worked. So why are we killing creativity? I sat next to a man on a plane who was from Norway, and I was telling him about the speech that I was giving. And he told me that in Norway, all the school playgrounds have no trees, that they have cut down the trees because they don't want children climbing them. Why don't they want children climbing them? Because if they fall out, then the parents will sue the school. And these reasons, like economical reasons and things, they're not reasons to kill or to suppress a child's creativity. I'd like you to have a look, just briefly, at this video. Does anybody know it? Oh, if it works. No. Okay, this video's not working. So what you have to do is imagine. What do you think is happening in this video? What can you see? This is a baby. She's on a climbing wall. She's not even 2 years old. Her name is Ellie. And the video, I so want to see it, is beautiful because you can see her thinking about how, negotiating the climbing wall, problem solving. How can I get my foot on here and pull myself up? It's a really beautiful video. I'm so sorry it's not working. I'll try and get it working before the end of the session so that you can see it. But it's an example of a child's creativity. A child working things out. So what changed from this era when children were children and worked things out? Well, basically societies developed, industry was revolutionized, agricultural development, societies came together, communities formed, and from natural instincts, natural instinctive methods of learning, we moved to this. This is an old picture. But really, this could be today in many schools. Maybe the colours would be a bit different, the uniforms different, the desks sat together. But schools became preparation centres. Preparations for what? The industry wanted submissive workers. The governments wanted compliant, disciplined soldiers and compliant residents and citizens. Schools became preparation centres for children, for their roles in society when they were adults. So, what were the goals? What were the main aims of these preparation centres? They wanted obedience, moral virtue, punctuality, tolerance for boring, unchallenging work, the ability to follow directions, and basic literacy and numeracy. These were the main aims of school. They didn't want children thinking for themselves. They wanted them submitted and with these values in space. These were the skills that were promoted. But little has changed through the ages. Not much has changed. In the Byzantium era, we've got people sitting down, teacher-centred desk. In ancient Greece, at least this one's a woman. Again, everybody facing the teacher, sitting down, controlled, directed environments in every country, in every part of the world. Things haven't changed. And yet the world has changed in so many other ways. So why have the schools not changed? So what do all these photos have in common? The teacher-centred role. Non-collaborative. Children working on their own individually. Memorising was the measure of success. Why did I say was? Memorising is the measure of success. At least where I live in Spain, and the Spanish educational system, if you can't memorise, you don't pass the exams. There's no opportunity to show what you've learnt in any other way. And at every level, even for state government jobs, which every Spanish person wants to be a civil servant, because it's a job for life. The process involves memorising a whole load of information to pass the exam. If you want promotion, you're not promoted based on your abilities at work. That you're not promoted to manager because you're a people person. You're promoted to manager because you take the next exam, you memorise the next block of information, and you get the top mark, you go to the top of the list, so you get the manager's job. I don't know about other systems, other countries, but Spain is a modern country, and yet they still have this way of measuring success. And so one kind of intelligence is rewarded. Mathematical, logical intelligence. Brute force methods. I mean, obviously, forcing children brutally has changed, although I don't know, in some countries perhaps not. When I was at school, they'd only just got rid of caning children. So, power assertion. The teacher is the one. Above everybody else. There's no equality. Systematic seating, theory-based, preparing students for basic jobs. And these basic instincts are suppressed. And mistakes are punished. Now, I have a goddaughter, Anaya, and her mother sent me this because she was furious. When she was 6 years old, this was her maths. Sorry, it's a really bad picture. But basically, she had 3 sums to do for homework. And I don't know if you can read it from there, but one of the sums is completely right. Which one? This one on the end is completely right. This one on the end, that column's correct, that column's correct, that column's correct. Oops. She made a mistake. 7 plus 2 is not 6. This column's correct. 6 and 3 is not 8. This is correct, and this is correct. And what the teacher wrote in big red letters was mal. I don't know if any of you speak Spanish. Anyone speak Spanish? It does. Here's the word reference meaning. It means bad, and it means wrong. 6 years old. Yeah, 6, 7, maybe? Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. That's what they do, sit and kind of write. I didn't circle this one, what mal can also mean, harm, evil, wrong. But it's like, what was the teacher thinking to do that to a 6-year-old girl, or 7-year-old, 6 or 7 year old girl? How is that going to make someone feel? No promotion, no congratulations for the beautifully produced work, that the fact that the numbers are more or less in the boxes, that most of the sum is right, that only one aspect of it is wrong. Nothing. Oh, this infuriated me. So, what the key issue of schools is conformity. To make children conform. There's no room for curiosity, for creativity, no room for individuality. Individual students get punished. The whole process is give, feed, feed, feed. Children have no input on what they're learning. They're just filled with information and they have no idea. They're not told like why this information is useful or what it would be good for or how real it is for them. They're just, this is what you need to know. This is what you need to memorize. Conformity is key. And what happens at break time? What can you see in this picture? Full of energy, happy, running around, having a great time. Why do children just love break time so much? Why don't they come into the classroom like that? Do any of your students enter the classroom like that? They do. Wow, I'm impressed. This is what they should be doing. Not running out of the classroom like this, but running into the classroom like this. Because this is children in their natural state. Why do we need to try and change their natural state? Oh, I forgot I had that in here. This is a photo of a forest school. I don't know if anybody knows anything about the forest schools. They're kind of they're enormous business in America, in Britain, in Northern Europe. And they're basically primary schools that have no school. They have no building. The school uniform is Wellingtons and hats and gloves and scarves because the northern countries have terrible weather. And the school is outside and they learn maths through counting leaves and picking up it. They learn science through catching tadpoles and looking at nature. They're allowed to use fire. They cook their own food. They make their own things with saws and tools. And for me, I just think it's a wonderful thing. It's a bit like scout camp. Were any of you guides or scouts? You know, how much did we enjoy scout camp? And how much did we learn? I can still remember how to tie knots. And I was a scout 100 years ago. So what has changed? Well, you know, the male teachers have become female. Schools used to be for the elite, and now schools are for everyone. The severe learning environments in most countries have changed, and we have colourful classrooms and cushions and carpets and things like that. Expanded curriculums. Punishments are a little less severe. But more time is spent in schools. Children spend a lot of time in schools or doing homework, which is basically doing school at home. Apart from if you're from Norway, because Norwegian schools don't have homework. But the basic model stays the same. So nothing has changed in the centuries. So why 21st century education? Why change a model that has remained virtually unchanged for centuries? Was school really that bad? I mean, I loved school. I don't know about any of you. Did any of you love school? A few of you nodding. Who hated school? Oh, okay, a couple of people hated it. I love school. But, you know, for me, I mean, we're all academics. So we didn't suffer from some of the problems that children suffer from. For if we're academics, it suggests that, you know, we found learning reasonably easy. So, but I love this picture. Well, I don't love it. It terrifies me. But I think it's a really good representation of these individual creatures coming in and these exact models, replicas coming out. What we don't see, what we don't see at the back here is the back door. What's coming out the back door of this school? Well, yes, that's kind of going down the drain, but out the back door, we've got the school dropouts. We've got those who didn't make it through, the ones who dropped out, ones with mental health issues from school, with drug and alcohol, behavioural problems. Because most behavioural problems come from the fact that, you know, students can't do a lot of the work that they're asked to do, that they're forced to do. And even these models that come out, there are 200,000 deaths linked to stress from school every year. 200,000 estimated. And then there's the ones that we don't know about, where the issues that come out as adults, people suffered from school. So really, what's different about the 21st century? Well, basically, it's the digital era. And the digital era has changed everything, as you all know. But when did this digital era start? Okay, it started in the 20th century, but only just. 600 websites online. Google was born in 1998. That wasn't that long ago, and yet Google's such a part of our lives. Facebook was only launched in 2004. YouTube in 2005. And from 2004 to 2010, 400 million, and now it's 2.1 billion. And that's Facebook. My students all say to me, oh, Becky, Facebook. No, it's all da-da-da, all these new ones. You know, so if there's 2.1 billion active users of Facebook in 2017, and then we've got all of those who are using Instagram and all the other social networks. It's just taken over the world, literally. And as teachers, we can't predict the future of our students. We don't know what jobs are in store for them. We can't say, oh, when you're older, you could become an engineer or a carpenter or a mechanic or even a teacher. You know, these jobs, the traditional roles, they're just disappearing. Technology is taking over. And we need to prepare our students for the unknown because we don't know what their future holds. So the birth of digitalization, or the birth of the digital era, gave a huge push to globalization. This is the Wikipedia definition of globalization. And the words that stand out for me are international integration. Look at us here today. I mean, I don't know how many countries are in this one small room. But at this conference, I think somebody mentioned to me yesterday, there are people from over 40 different countries, all coming together. So, CLIL. Why CLIL? CLIL has taken the world by storm. It was devised at the same time as the digital era came into being. But nowadays, there are hundreds of thousands of articles online. But education in a foreign language is nothing new. Again, going back in history, back to 2300 BCE in the Akkadian Sumerians, when the Akkadians took over and in this Sumerian province, instruction was given in Sumerian, in the mother language. In Mayan and Olmecs, again, instruction given in another language. Same with the Romans and Greeks. Even Luxembourg. Luxembourg, since 1844, has had bilingual education as part of an integral part of its education system. You know, all people who live in Luxembourg are bilingual, at least, most of them trilingual. So, CLIL is nothing new. Integrated learning in another language is nothing new. So, what does CLIL mean? To situations where subjects or parts of subjects are taught through a foreign language with dual-focused objectives, namely the learning of content and the simultaneous learning of a foreign language. I mean, that seems a really clear definition. And yet, it's become an umbrella term for all of these other different programs. But they're not CLIL. CLIL is different. CLIL is like a combination of all of these. It's a motivational, inclusive approach to make learning positive and to help develop a can-do attitude and real experience. It's designed to bring excellence and learning into the classroom. It's a fusion. It's not one thing and the other. It's a fusion of both of them. Again, I have to refer to where I live in Bad Hof. Their schools are taking on CLIL. You know, that's all they can talk about. They have signs outside their schools saying, you know, CLIL learning environment. Teachers go on CLIL weekends. They write CLIL reports. But what they're doing in schools is not CLIL. They're teaching their subject in English, yes. But they're not considering the CLIL method in any way whatsoever. They're doing what they do in Spanish and just translating it into English, which is not giving the students what they need. Content drives CLIL. It's not a... so what has been the success of CLIL? The success of CLIL has been its adaptability. The fact that it's spread across countries and across nations, across all types of schools and all stages of education. It unites people with language. And the CLIL approach answered the needs of this changing education. In the digital era, students have information at their fingertips. They have all this stuff. The traditional methods are no longer appropriate. And CLIL, the CLIL approach, allows for this. It allows for the teacher to realize that the student has the information and our job is not any longer to give. So the CLIL language, again, everybody associates CLIL with English. But the CLIL language can be any language, depending on the country. Again, where I live, it's mainly English, but we also, because I live on the border of Portugal, some schools take CLIL as Portuguese and instruct their students in Portuguese. So it depends where you are and what you're doing. So running parallel in leaps and bounds to the mania for digital came a new mania. No sound. Oh, thanks, Aggie. No. Don't worry if it doesn't work. But I don't know if there's any speakers. I don't know. Has anybody seen this video? The Jay Walker video?
A new mania. A mania for learning English. Listen as Chinese students practice their English by screaming it.
My life! I don't want to write my parents down. I don't ever want to write my country down. Most importantly, I don't want to write myself down.
A mania for learning English. Is this CLIL? Absolutely not. It's learning in another language. But why? Why English? Again, no one says it better than Jay Walker.
Why English? In a single word, opportunity. Opportunity for a better life, a job, to be able to pay for school or put better food on the table.
That's why.
The intensity to learn English is almost unimaginable unless you witness it.
Perfect. I want to speak perfect English. I want to speak perfect English.
So is English mania good or bad? Is English a tsunami washing away other languages? Not likely. English is the world's second language. Your native language is your life, but with English you can become part of a wider conversation, a global conversation about global problems, like climate change or poverty or hunger or disease. The world has other universal languages. Mathematics is the language of science. Music is the language of emotions. And now English is becoming the language of problem solving, not because America is pushing it, but because the world is pulling it. So English mania is a turning point. Like the harnessing of electricity in our cities or the fall of the Berlin Wall, English represents hope for a better future. A future where the world has a common language to solve its common problems. Thank you very much.
So,
the intense...
a common language to solve the world's common problems. And the lingua franca, this beautiful term that was coined in the glory days of the Roman Empire, the lingua franca of the digital era is English. And 21st century education is connected intricately with the digital era. It's a vehicular language. It bridges communities. There is lots of criticism of it, and to a certain extent, I think they have a point. And it's seen as like a Trojan horse, that instead of being filled with soldiers, the Trojan horse enters countries and it's full of English teachers. There is resistance to it, to English taking over. That's a topic for another day and something I enjoy talking about. But let's look at Khalil then. The 4 C's. An integral, the competencies to facilitate learning of both content and language. And the principles and approach of it are linked to 21st century models. If we look at these elements to teaching, the traditional model, the teacher-centric model, the 21st century model is what? Student-centric. Learning programs are group-based. And now they're individual-based. It used to be, all of you have to achieve this. And now we have individual learning programs. Again, these cause problems, especially in England. There's huge problems with individual learning programs. But that's because of how they're implemented. The learning outcomes, assessment-focused instead of process and outcomes. The learning focus, mainly content, mainly process in the 21st century. The content the students have at their fingertips. They need to know what to do. They need to be directed, shown what to do with this language. Interaction, mainly individual. Now it's collaborative. The aim is towards collaboration. Summative and formative. Spoon-fed. Open your mouth, take in the information, absorb it, swallow, done. Okay, now it's project and problem-based. School design, for example, single-purpose spaces, and now these flexible learning spaces, which are absolutely beautiful in the countries that have done them right. Thinking skills, predominantly lower order, and we're aiming for higher order. Student involvement in learning. Students construct content, giving them some choice in what they learn, instead of just telling them what they're going to learn. And use of technology, which is used to be functional, but now, 21st century model, is transformative. I read through those really briefly. I'm sorry, time is an element. But why do we need these 21st century skills? Because life is different. In the 20th century, people had a job, and that was their job for life. But things are changing. Now, jobs are transitory, and there's consultants and people moving around the world with their jobs. Critical thinking across the disciplines is absolute key. But schools are still churning out these students. Tests. I can take tests. I can't do anything else. I can take tests. because that's what I'm attuned to. So what are the elements? It's predicted that the 3 R's will always be necessary. Of course they will. We're not saying get rid of these. But they need to be done in combination with the 5 C's. It depends which book you read or who you talk to about whether it's 3 C's or 4 C's or 5 C's or 7 C's. But coincidentally, they do all begin with C. Creativity, the key, collaboration, working together, communicating, critical thinking, citizenship, not working for ourselves as individuals, but working together as a community. Other of the C's that could be put in here could be added to it or used as alternatives. And the last one, the final one, caring. But again, that's a separate issue that which we'll come back to at some other point. So the 21st century education, the equation, 3 R's plus 5 C's plus technology plus language is the basis of 21st century education. This is what teachers fear most. The problem is with implementing these CLIL activities, and again it's happened with teachers I know, they love the concept in theory, but putting it into practice is a terrifying idea. They're worried that they'll lose control of their students. They think they're on their own. They're like, well, I want to do this CLIL stuff, Becky. I want to implement these CLIL activities. But my classroom is like this. My desks are fixed to the floor. This is the curriculum I have to stick to. I have to teach them A, B, and C by the end of the week. There's no time. I don't have time. No time. No time. Time is the major issue for teachers. To prepare CLIL activities takes time. You can't just open a book and say to your students, open the book on page 1 and do activity 1. It takes time, it takes preparation. And teachers are feeling alone, feeling like they don't have the support that they need. But as I say to my students, be patient. Don't try to implement CLIL in a huge go all at once. Introduce it step by step. Because some of my students have had, some of my trainees have had their students reject the concept of CLIL because they're like, we're not learning. Because again, if they've been in the education system long enough, certainly in Spain, if they think if they're not sitting in front of a book and writing from an exercise in silence, if they're doing something fun or entertaining or creative, they think they're wasting time. And actually, in Spain, they are wasting time because their assessment does not allow for any of those things. Their universities, they cannot access unless they have this exam from which they've memorized everything. So we all come from the traditional methods of learning. Students today still have this traditional method of learning fixed in their head. The school policy makers and organisers and head teachers, we're all products of the traditional system. So what I say to people is patience. One step at a time. See how it can work on a small basis and take it from there. There are some videos here which we don't have time to watch, CLIL for You videos, which show CLIL being put into practice in the right way. And I've chosen 2 that are not primary school, because primary school is the easiest way to implement CLIL activities, because primary school education is activity-based. The problem arises when you come to secondary, where students are just focused on exams, and more so at university. Do we have any university teachers here today? Hello, welcome. More so at university, when students have come through the system with this set in mind that they can't participate and be involved, that they just have to take what they're given. So these videos show higher education, and they're wonderful. I shall give you the link afterwards, but I'm afraid we're going to have to move on from them. So research has shown that the CLIL approach means better retention, greater learning, happier, balanced children with skills that will help them in this uncertain future that they face. It's a rocky road. As I say, it's not an easy one. You can't just go to a CLIL training session and just come back and change all your classes because A, you don't have time, B, you're getting no support. It's a rocky road, but please be patient. As Ian Duke said, you know, the students as well, the other disadvantage we have is like young people today are digital natives. And most of us, or most of my generation certainly, we're what he calls digital immigrants. To them, the students, young people today are bilingual already. They speak their language and they speak digital. So your job, as you know it, is changing. You're no longer just the educator. You've got to be a risk taker. By putting CLIL activities, by implementing in your class, you're taking risks. A collaborator, you're working together with your students to decide, to make decisions about what you're learning. You're the model. We as teachers have to continue learning. We can't just say, well, you know, I'm a teacher now, I stop learning. We've got to continue learning. You're all here today, so you're obviously open to this role. We lead, we direct, we've got to envisage the future, we've got to envisage the problems that might come in. We're the learner, we're a communicator, we're an adapter. Because the ideal CLIL classroom, what we shouldn't do is just pay lip service to it, which is what happens a lot. I've seen this so much in classes when I'm evaluating teachers. And again, it's hard for us to do. So, most of you, I think, know CLIL. You've probably been to CLIL training sessions. You know what it is, but learning about it and implementing it are completely different things. You know, in an ideal world, whose classroom looks like the one on the left? Mine does. Whose looks like the one on the right? Whose looks like nothing like that? No? Kind of combination of the two. More on the left or more on the right? More on the left. They're extreme. It's an extreme example, but yes. You know, in my dreams, I would have a classroom like that on the right. But again, it's adapting to what you've got. Look at this. Wow. Wouldn't that be wonderful? But again, you know, digital resources are limited in most schools. But I can't remember who it was that said that online is a means, it's not a goal, okay? If you don't have online, let your students use their mobile phones in class. And some students in some schools, they have all been given tablets. So they've all got these tablets. But the teachers haven't been trained in how to get their students using these tablets in class, apart from to say, okay, look at this website or do this. The teachers, the money went towards buying all this. We've got the top of the range digital equipment, but not to training the teachers how to help the students use them in a way that's optimum for their learning. In my school, for example, we've all got digital boards. And they were put in. It's like, okay, start using them. We were like, but we don't know how to use them. We're like, well, train yourselves. Okay, when? In our free time? Which, you know, we need support in this. All of us do. This is an experiment I did with some of my students. We just set up a blog and they were just putting things in the blog and getting involved, and it was a wonderful experience. And actually, one of my students who I'd had since he was 6 years old came up to me after a few weeks of doing the blog, and he was like, oh my God, Becky, that's the best lesson ever. And I was like, thanks, Carlos. And I was, on one hand, really pleased that he'd enjoyed the lesson, on the other hand, thinking, he's enjoying it because it's digital, and all the classes I've given him before, he never said that to me. So what you have to remember is you are not alone. There is a world of help out there at your fingertips. We need to keep training to work out how we can move forward with the CLIL approach into the 21st century. Teachers need to work together with their managers. This is the main issue. The teachers are willing. We want to, but they're getting no support from their educational managers, who in turn are getting no support from their bosses, who in turn are getting no support from the local government, who in turn are getting no support from the national government. These things take time. It's trickling through. Similarly, those of you who inherit young children right from the beginning, you can train them in the CLIL approach from the beginning. And they will move through the school system, through the education system. But those of us who inherit university-level students now, who are products of the traditional method, we are the ones who have the most difficult problem. But when you think of everything, you've got to trust in yourself. Remember when you were really little and you couldn't ride a bike? You couldn't walk? You couldn't ride a horse, you couldn't do anything, you couldn't drive a car. Can you remember how difficult driving a car was? Really, when you first started it? It's the hardest thing in the world, and now we all just get in the cars and drive. So this is the same, okay? CLIL is like, just keep trying. All those times you fell off your bike, you got back on. All of the times you fell over when you were trying to walk, you got back on. All of those times you fell off your horse when you were trying to ride, you got back on. Well, with the CLIL, keep at it. Keep on it. You will be able to do it. Trust in yourselves and trust in your students to go along with it. Thank you very much.